Manager, you're trying to do it all. Hit your targets, grow your people, enhance culture, and stay sane in the process. But what separates high performers from mediocre managers? It all starts with resilient relationships, meaningful goals, and curiosity for those around you. Coaching is often misunderstood as a tool for great leadership. As a manager, you're not striving to be a professional coach. Rather, adopting a new mindset and an actionable process will reframe how you manage and lead. It's called being coach-like.
As a manager, it is key to become more coach-like to unlock the very best performance from your team members. This can be a pretty big mind shift for many, because many of us have been promoted on the basis of our knowledge and skills to do a particular job really well. But what made you strong as an individual contributor won't necessarily serve you as a manager. This is a big mindset shift to go from using knowledge to solve problems to enabling people around you to solve their own problems.
Even if you aren't a sports fan, you know that coaches stay on the sidelines during games to empower team members to achieve team success. Take the record-winning New Zealand All Blacks. The team's coaches don't instruct players on what they're doing wrong during games, but ask players what they've observed. In doing so, coaches enable players to understand issues and build situational awareness. This fosters a learning culture where players build on their experience, are open to discuss their mistakes, and learn from each other.
But maybe you're thinking to yourself, look, I'm not a sports coach. And even if I was, I definitely don't have all day long to ask questions and wait for people to think of the answers. Fair enough. But this approach to coaching is not additive. You're not adding more work. It is transformative. Learning to be more coach-like and ask coaching questions is a powerful unlock as a manager. Becoming more coach-like actually will reduce the amount of effort you need to put into managing your team and to help them drive towards those final results. Here's the reason why. By asking questions, you don't need to do as much heavy cognitive lifting yourself as a manager. Instead, you're inviting your teammates to make connections and solve problems. If you're more coach-like, you get to work less hard and have more impact. The research tells us that coaching is more important than ever in the modern workplace. Google's Project Aristotle, it researched the most effective ways for teams to work together, found that the top behavior that the best managers displayed was good coaching. In fact, the top three were coaching, empowering teammates, and building an inclusive team. Being productive and results-driven, what lots of people assume would be on top, actually is fourth after those other coach-like leadership behaviors.
3 months of coaching results in stronger resilience, higher confidence, better collaboration, and lower stress and anxiety than the national average. Employers find a 3.5 to 5x ROI in performance gains, retention, and wellness for resources invested in coaching.
But there's one huge obstacle here. It's your advice monster.
Imagine the scenario. One of your direct reports asks your opinion on a project they're working on. Your first instinct is probably to answer the question. You're helping them out, right? Wrong.
You have an advice-giving habit, and this is your advice monster. And actually, we all have one. This is your urge to tell people what you would do if you're in their position. Your urge to provide solutions, to help them get things done, to add value to the conversation. Now, as a manager, when your advice monster gets the best of you, you end up silencing your teammates. And when you give people advice, you're giving them a very significant and worrying subliminal message. You're saying, you're not good enough. I'm the only one who's smart enough, good enough, experienced enough, wise enough to have the answer here. That's not helpful. That makes you a bottleneck to your team, and instead of leading others, you're doing all the work for them.
As a manager, your advice-giving habit does you more bad than good. A 2021 Gallup poll found that managers who oversee teams are experiencing the highest level of burnout at organizations, and it's only trending upward.
Paradoxically, a complete manager's value is not just in their ability to provide advice, although that has its place, as you've heard. It's actually, most significantly, in supporting their teammates to discover their own solutions and help them to work consistently at their peak performance.
Take W.L. Gore, maker of Gore-Tex waterproof fabric and Glide dental floss. Instead of supervisors, every employee has a sponsor, including the CEO. A sponsor's core role is to help the employee identify passions, match interests with company needs, and to help them solve their own problems. The rewards of this coach-like culture pay off for both employees and the company. W.L. Gore made Forbes' list for Best Large Employer and Best Employers for Diversity in 2021 and 2022, while consistently winning industry awards for innovation.
The opposite of giving advice is being curious. Instead of thinking you know everything, assume others have the capacity to teach you something. In place of giving advice, ask more questions.
There are 2 questions that any manager can start using right away to become more coach-like. Use them in any conversation and see the magic unfold.
I call the first question the Kickstarter question. What's on your mind? This question helps you use time efficiently by accelerating into the heart of the challenge, getting right into what's most important, concerning, or exciting for your teammate. There's no need to rely on a vague agenda because the other person will bring all of their material into that conversation. Once the small talk starts to fizzle, drop this question and wait for their response. Now, this question, like all of them, are open-ended questions because they invite the other person to claim autonomy, empowerment, and control. I'd suggest you try this question out in your next one-to-one or project check-in. Begin by asking, so, what's on your mind? And then be quiet. That's it. Hold back with giving them the advice. Stay curious just a little bit longer.
Bookend your strong opening question with a question to close the conversation while promoting learning.
A strong question to finish any conversation is the learning question. What was most useful or most valuable here for you? As a coach-like manager, you want to increase the capacity and the confidence and the autonomy and the self-sufficiency of the people in your team. And at the end of any type of conversation, this question is an effective coaching question because it requires your teammate to specifically recall the key takeaways, the key value from the meeting, internalize them, and articulate them. Neuroscience actually shows us that the brain creates new neural pathways when it retrieves information, like in the form of answering a question to recap a meeting.
Similar to the first coaching question, the space and time you give your direct report to respond to this question is what makes it impactful.
So to use the learning question in your next conversation with a teammate, take just 1 more minute at the end of the meeting and say, look, before you go, let me just check in with you. What was most useful or most valuable here for you? Give your teammate time to think it through and give you an answer. And then, if you want, offer a response to the same question yourself. Sharing answers like this at the end of the conversation reinforces commonalities and finishes on a positive note for you and for them. This is actually a version of strengthening that operating manual.
Use the Kickstart and learning questions to empower your team members to autonomously reflect, analyze, and learn. In a weekly one-to-one, a project meeting, or even while grabbing lunch, you're facilitating your colleagues' growth into a better version of themselves. As you become more coach-like, keep a few key takeaways in mind. First, current organizational structures can nurture the advice monster. Counteract it by using your advice-giving habit as a trigger for coach-like behavior.
It is challenging to keep your advice monster at bay. The effort you devote to taming your advice monster is absolutely worth it because your teammates will be able to take more ownership, develop more solutions, and operate at the peak performance. Remember, your goal is to overcome your advice-giving habit by building the coaching habit.
Second, you don't need to commit a lot of time to do this well. Start your coaching journey by asking the 2 questions in a conversation today, even a short 10-minute one. It is as simple as it sounds, but deceptively powerful.
Good coaching is a powerful force for change that builds over time. The more you ask questions, the more you curiously engage with the answers, the more your team will reap the benefits of your coach-like leadership.
To learn more about becoming a more curious coach-like leader, watch the accompanying case study.